Here.
Councilor Lindell.
Here.
Councilor Garcia.
Present.
Councilor Vihil Coppler.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just for all committee members as well as other councilors on, you can use the raise your hand feature or just wave at me on the screen. I'll do my best to kind of go through everybody and make sure I see everybody. But if for some reason you're not sure how to raise your hand on Zoom, just wave your hand on the screen and try to get my attention, or just interrupt at a point, and we'll try to make sure everyone gets heard. So first we have item 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from staff, either from Shannon or from John?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Nothing from John. Anything from Shannon?
I have no changes, Chair. Thank you.
Anything from the committee? What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
To approve.
A motion for approval from Councilor Lindell and a second from Councilor Vihil Coppler. Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Martin?
Yes, sir. Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
Councilor Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Vihil Coppler.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Next, approval of the consent agenda. Any changes, John?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
How about Shannon?
We have no changes, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Anything the committee would like to pull? Let's start out with Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Item A, please.
Item A. Councilor Abeyta, anything you would like to pull?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Anything from Councilor Vihil Coppler?
No, sir.
All right. Councilor Garcia?
No, sir. No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let me make sure no one else is on. It doesn't look like anyone else is on. So, all right. With that, we have the consent agenda with item A being pulled by Councilor Lindell. Do we have excuse
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
a motion for approval from Councilor Lindell, a second from Councilor Vihil Coppler. A roll call, please, Ms. Martin.
Yes. Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
Councilor Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Vihil Coppler.
Yes.
Motion approved. Motion.
Thank you. And while we're going through the rest of the agenda, Shannon, if you can make sure Ms. McDonald is available for questioning from Councilor Lindell.
And Mr. Chair, she's an attendee, so when the time comes, you could promote her to a panelist.
Okay, Joe, is that something I would do or something you would do?
I made you the host.
Okay,
Who'd you need to speak to?
Melissa McDonald.
Okay, so you just go over to the attendees, go to Melissa McDonald, and then hit more and promote her to a panelist.
Okay. All right, next is approval of the minutes from April 6th, Public Works, CIP and Land Use Committee meeting, and the April 1st, 2020 Public Utilities Committee meeting. Let's do 2020 Public Works, CIP and Land Use Committee first. Any changes from staff, John?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything from the committee? All right, what are the wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion for approval from Councilor Garcia, second from Councilor Vihil Coppler. We have a roll call, please.
Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
Councilor Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Viho Coppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Good, and now minutes from the April 1st, 2020 Public Utilities Committee meeting. Any changes from staff, Shannon?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes from staff.
All right, anything from the committee? Wishes of the committee?
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
A motion for approval from Counselor Garcia, a second from Counselor Lindell. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those, roll call, please, Ms. Martin.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes?
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Viho Coppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Next, we're on to public comment. Do we have any public comment regarding Public Works? Emily, I don't know if you're on, but were there any submissions to you?
She's on as an attendee, Mr. Chair.
All right, give me just a second here. All right, Emily, can you hear me now?
Hi, Mr. Chair. No, I didn't receive any public comment.
All right, Jamie, anything for you regarding public comment?
I did not receive any public comment either.
All right, public comment section is closed. Now we're on to the consent agenda. The only thing that was pulled was item A, recommendation of approval for PSA for on-call vegetation management professional services contract not to exceed $600,000 annually per vendor exclusive of New Mexico GRTs. Ms. McDonald, let me promote you and all right, Ms. McDonald, you've been promoted to a panelist. Councilor Lindell, you pull this. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just, more than questions for Ms. McDonald, I think that I have questions about how this affects our finances. It's a $600,000. What was the budgeting on this? Is it, how does this affect our budgeting for next year? Considering how we're trying to pull back costs and hold costs, what does passing this mean to our budget place, specific to the project? My question would be, who's the project manager on this? I looked through the three contractors. They have wildly different costs for the same work to be completed. And frankly, I thought the costs were really, really high. But, you know, I don't do this kind of work, but when you talk about 1 square yard of clearing an area for, I forget what it was, they had different types of things. It seemed pretty pricey to me if you're gonna go out and clear any sizable area or, you know, even a 8-foot by 10-foot area. But my initial question really has to do with our budgeting and what this $600,000 means, and if we're tying it up. So I don't know who can speak to that.
Yeah, Melissa, do you want to take a stab at that and just talk about the project management and where, if the funding's coming from general fund or if there are other sources of funding?
Yes, Councilor Rivera, Councilor Lindell, thank you for the question. This is an on-call contract. We have these for other services within Public Works. And essentially, this is a contract that is looked at several times. So this is just allowing us, like a price agreement, to have contractors on hand to utilize when needed. It's not approving the amount right now. It allows us up to contracts, tasks that we can project by project. And this is important right now because we currently do not have anyone who can do work within the river. So this is just another tool in our chest as we look at clearing things should they come up. It's not a guarantee, and that was very clearly stated to all of the proponents.
And where does the funding come from, Ms. McDonald?
Yes, thank you very much, Councilor Rivera. So purchasing asked me to coordinate with Parks in this RFP because we're trying to maximize the usage of these types of contracts. So it's dual focus. The funding could come from the stormwater service charge, which we identified as potentially $300,000 from there. And then the Parks and Recreation Department actually had about $500,000, but we only allocated $250,000 out of that budget. And that came from Parks and Recreation. We also anticipated that there may be, say, $50,000 more that another department could take advantage of. But ultimately, these contracts can be utilized by anyone if the budget is there and the funding is appropriated. So right now, there is no budget associated with this, and there's no tasks that are being put forward.
Okay, Councilor Lindell, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. McDonald. That's really what I wanted to know, if we were obligating funding for this or so in other words, we are not obligating any funding for this. And this is just essentially, at this point, gathering of prices. Is that true?
Yes, Councilor Lindell, that is correct. And these prices are locked in for 4 years. So, you know, that's the advantage to doing an on-call. It locks the prices in at 4 years. And there was a wide variation of costs. I think that's because each of the entities bidding on it have their specialties, and these on-call contracts do allow us to select the company that's most suited for the type of work. This is, you know, ranging everywhere from kind of clearing channels that are small vegetation all the way up to taking big trees out. And taking dead and down.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, any other questions from committee members? Councilor Vihil Coppler, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, then I'd like to ask Ms. McDonald if these are only prices, how likely is it that during this budget crisis we are going to use these funds?
Councilor Rivera, Councilor Coppler, we are, of course, working this was all started prior to the COVID health crisis, but our goal is to utilize in-house services as much as possible. I've been working with John Munoz at Parks and Recreation, as well as speaking with Thomas Martinez of Streets. And wherever possible, we will utilize those resources. One of the areas of concern is that they have had some layoffs and they may or may not have availability. However, with reassignments that could occur, we would of course work with people that we have on hand. So that would be the intent. But this does protect us should an emergency come up and the skill levels not be there or the equipment, because there are larger equipment items that you need to work with some of this type of removal.
So then my second question is, if we've identified these monies in these two budget areas, might those be ripe for moving into the budget shortfall?
I may defer to John Romero on this, but my understanding is that each task you need to get approval. So it would have to be going through approval. It's not allocated until it goes through that next step. So from that perspective, I believe that would be, that we wouldn't be necessarily expending these things.
Mr. Romero?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Bill Coppler. So yeah, so those are very good questions. And again, it's like, as Melissa explained, this basically establishes prices and establishes an easy mechanism for us to procure these services on a case-by-case basis. The decision to spend money against this on-call contract will not be made until we decide to submit a requisition. So it'll be scrutinized by our department to make sure that it's a legitimate need, an emergency need. We'll have to identify funding at that time, and then we send that on to finance, and then they'll scrutinize it from their end. And they'll make sure that it's something that they feel that we absolutely need to do. And of course, they'll be identifying funding at that time. So again, there's no funding. It's a cap of $600,000. And so there's no funding obligated or earmarked for this at this point, but it's available in case we need those services at a moment's notice.
Well, I would assume that the city manager should be, culling through all the low-hanging balances in various line items or organizational units and such. And so I would wonder if these monies in their various locations have already been identified for contributing to the shortfall.
So yeah, they'll definitely be looking at that. This will be utilized some this fiscal year, but a lot next fiscal year. So those decisions haven't been made. But yes, we'll have to, whatever budgets they do give us for different operating costs, we'll have to work within those areas or propose budget adjustments. And I know it's understood, but just to really clarify, if we didn't approve this, it doesn't free up $600,000 for us. It's just either way, it doesn't tie up or free up money, but again, it's available. So, but you're correct, we may have very limited funds that we could use towards this. The remainder of this fiscal year and next fiscal year, but we'll work through that when the time comes.
So this is sort of just wishful thinking.
Well, it's also, pardon me, Councilor Cobbler, it's also if we have a big storm and an emergency, we can quickly address the problem. That's my bigger concern, is that at this point, we don't have coverage for removal should we have a big storm, and one never knows when we're going to get a storm. So part of it was wishful thinking in that we have increased the stormwater service charge, and the intent was to utilize it to make up all that lacking maintenance that we've had for several years. But, obviously we have a different budget that we're working with now, and we have to adjust that for sure. But I'm most concerned about protecting us should we have a bad storm and need to clear something quickly.
I wholeheartedly agree with that purpose, because obviously we know we've been through that experience. So, all right, thank you.
So Ms. McDonald, is it safe to say that this is really just like a placeholder for the emergency situations?
Councilor Rivera, yes, I think that would be fair to say.
And also, it's basically establishing prices and procurement. So when the time comes, if we needed to move vegetation, if we waited till that point, then we'd have to maybe, depending on the price, maybe go out to bid, get quotes, do all that type of stuff. Well, we've already done all that legwork. So when the time comes, we just go straight to PO, again, assuming the money's there. So this takes care of all the procurement exercise beforehand.
All right, Councilor Garcia, I have you on screen. Do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Beta, I have you on screen as well. Any questions?
No.
All right, welcome, Ms. Wheeler. I know you've been busy. John's been doing a great job covering for you. So anything you want to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's all been well said.
All right, thank you. All right, what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
A motion for approval from Counselor Lindell, and I believe a second from Counselor Vihil Coppler. Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Martin?
Yes, sir. Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Vihil Coppler.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Now to item 8, presentation and recommendation on capital project reprioritization recommendations. I believe John is going to take this one. So John, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in a moment, I'll share my screen and I'll present our most current draft.
Excuse me, John, can you try to get closer to your microphone? I'm having a very hard time hearing you.
I can't hear either, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll speak up. I'll speak louder for sure. So before I share my screen to present the capital projects, what I've been considering this exercise and wanted to present to you guys to see if you guys agree, is, you know, we have a bunch of projects that we have assigned capital funds to, and there's different types of capital funding that we've assigned to it. Some of it GRT bond money, some of it general obligation bond money, and some of it's grant money, and some of it's special revenue sources like impact fees, things of that nature. So what I thought the exercise could be of value is to, again, look through all these projects, and the ones that still have things to do, just reevaluate those projects and see if we truly need to do that at this point in time. If we don't, then we can look at what money that would save us and then pile up all that money. And then this is what I was proposing to do with all that money. One is to help fully fund projects that are close to being fully funded, but just need a little bit more. And these would be essential projects. So to make projects whole. The second, we haven't really gone through this a whole lot, but to see if there's any new projects that we hadn't anticipated before that we may need to spend these monies on. And then lastly, whatever money we don't spend towards projects, I think there is a potential for some of the funding to be utilized towards capitalizable operational expenses. And so finance is working on determining the different colors of money and how flexible that money is to be spent on different things. But once we get that dollar amount, give it to them, and then finance can utilize that money to help prepare next fiscal year's operating budget as a revenue source. At least in my area, but I think a lot of the city, that the divisions and departments that rely on the general fund, as of recently, a lot of capitalizable operation expenses have been budgeted out of the general fund. So if we do this, we can use that money and it'll save how much we tax the general fund and reduce what other cuts we may have to do in other areas. So I don't know if you guys have any questions regarding that. If you do, I'd be happy to answer. And if not, I'll go ahead and move into the presentation.
Any questions before the presentation starts, or we can wait till after? Counselor Vihil Coppler. You're still on mute, Counselor.
we got two emails, one from you and one from Emily. Is the one from Emily most current, or are they both the same?
They should be both the same, but utilize the one that I sent you because I have the one that Emily sent, but I'm pretty sure they're both the same.
Okay, thank you.
All right, John, go ahead with your presentation, and then we'll wait for questions until you're done.
Okay. So what I did is I organized this into 4 types of funding sources. There are some projects that utilize multiple, and so I put them in. I only put those in one area, and I'll explain as I go. So the light orange or the light tan, those are all of our GRT funded projects. Funded through a bond that was sold that is paid back by the 0.5% GRT increment that's assessed that goes towards capital projects. It's called we used to call it the CIP bond. It's now called the GRT bond. I believe that funding has the potential to have the most flexibility to be spent elsewhere. So that's why I put that at the front. The next is the general obligation bond money. That's the bond money that's generated through a vote that's presented to the voters. So they vote for specific types of improvements. So that money has is more limited on what we could use it on. If it was intended for a park project or a trail project, we really can't spend it on anything but that. That was the conventional train of thought. I do know finance is looking into that to see under these special circumstances if there's any relief from that those rules on those funds, but I haven't heard back yet. But for now, I'm assuming that we can't use those other than what they were intended for the purpose they're intended for. The next we call special revenue, and these are like the majority of these are 2 of them are paid for by impact fees. Those are fees that are assessed at the time of development when someone's trying to pull a building permit. Depending on the scale of development, we assess different types of impact fees the city does. There's roadway impact fees, there's parks impact fees, police, and fire, I believe. So these projects, the 2 of them that reference impact fees are from road impact fees. The purpose of those are to expand the capacity of our existing roadway infrastructure. And that includes sidewalks and things like that. So it can't be used like on maintenance. It can't be used to repave because that doesn't expand. It just maintains what we have. But it can be used for like intersection improvements to improve vehicular mobility, to improve pedestrian mobility, things of that nature. And moving on into the gray, those are all of our grant funds, and they vary from DOT grants, federal grants that are administered through the NMDOT, DFA appropriations, basically legislative appropriations, and then there's NMED, an NMED project, and there's some where, for instance, the MRC, it's funded by the city, the county, and a legislative appropriation. So the majority of these, some of these grants have little to no match, with the exception of the MRC, and we'll discuss that as we move down. I think most of these, it's not worth giving up the grant money for the little match that we're providing. Because again, in a lot of instances, that match leverages a lot of outside money for us. So we haven't really looked through prioritizing any of these, with the exception of MRC, and I'll get to that as we get through the presentation. So moving back up in the GRT bond projects. I'm trying to get all the faces off of my, there we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna go one by one, and basically what we have is the original project budget, what our proposed revised budget is, and what those potential savings are. And briefly in the comments, I'll try to go over what that means, what we can get done and what we can't get done with that. So first off is City Hall. We of the 600,000, we think we can save up to about $437,000. The money that we're looking to use is to repair the roof. I think that's essential and important in maintaining that asset to make sure that it doesn't degrade. But the things that wouldn't happen would be, there was some work in the land use area, some remodeling that we think we could put on hold. And then the HVAC system at City Hall. The money that's available for that isn't enough to do what we need to do. According to our project managers, if we were to spend that money, the money that we have on that HVAC system, it wouldn't get us what we need, and we'd probably just be throwing money away. From what I recall, we need closer to like $2 million to properly repair that HVAC system. So that could be something that we could move money towards or just hold off on now to free up money. Fort Marcy, that project is complete. It was different renovations. I won't go into details because it's complete and we can't save any money. Genevieve Chavez, we allocated quite a bit of money towards that. And a lot of it was for essential improvements to boilers and HVAC and things of that nature that we really needed to get fixed. But that we did see some potential savings, and the savings is around $356,000. If we were to not do these projects and save that money, it would be, the projects are pool room and window painting, which was basically aesthetic, that saved us $85,000. Something that was characterized as structural painting. There's some exposed metal infrastructure that has some like rusted patina on it that we were going to clean off and paint to cover. Well, according to our project managers, it's very superficial, like it's a patina as opposed to something that really soaks into the steel. And they felt that that is something that we did not necessarily need to do at this moment, that the steel itself is still in good shape. So that would save us $250,000. Another one is pool tile repairs. They did not pose any problems with regards to any structural things, and they thought that we could not do that, not have to do that. It's $21,000. Give me 1 second, if you could. Let me hold on real quick. Hold on. All right, sorry about that. So moving on, main library, $175,000. We're looking to continue to spend that. It's for roof repair, again, to maintain the asset. Southside Library, of the $88,000, we're looking to spend $64,000 of that on HVAC repair that's needed. That would provide legitimate improvement. But we're proposing to hold off on $25,000 that was allocated for a water harvesting system. Salvador Perez, that's the big renovation that we're pretty close to being done with. So that one, we're in it to win it. You know, we might as well just move forward with that. And so we're almost done with that project. So we're not proposing any reductions at this time. There may be some some project savings for that project, but we'll have a better idea of what that number is once we do a project closeout. We're expecting to close that project out here pretty soon. Staringo Complex, there's HVAC and roof repair that's needed in one of the buildings. The building houses the police records, and the records are still in there. So we thought that was important to get that building fixed, because for the time being, we couldn't think of any other place to relocate those records. So we're proposing to continue with that. Seiler building, HVAC and roof repairs. Again, we thought essential. We can get a lot done with that $421,000. The tree root and pave repairs. This is around City Hall where all of our brick sidewalks are. We're looking into that to see if we absolutely need to do that. So we're going to look at it from not only ADA compliance, but just from a safety standpoint to make sure there's not a trip hazard. So right now we're proposing to save all that money because we haven't done the full evaluation. I think what we're going to end up doing is just, we may not spend all 60,000 of it, but we'll try to only spend where we absolutely feel we absolutely need to make those sidewalks safe. Fire Station 2, this is a big one. You know, it's $6 million, and we haven't had a discussion with the fire chief, so we're still going to do that. But I did talk it over with the finance director and the city manager. And again, we're spitballing here just to try to find ideas. And we're not saying that we shouldn't do this project by any means. We know there's some obligations due to the annexation. But the thing is, you know, $6 million is a lot. And then there could be some decent operating costs associated with that we're going to have to budget. Staff, building operations, vehicles, things of that nature, potentially. So, you know, for now we're keeping this on, but I am going to have a discussion with the fire chief. And, you know, again, spitballing things, is there a potential that they could borrow the fire station the county has, that volunteer fire station? Is it sufficient? You know, it may not be, but I will talk to him and we'll get a better handle on where that project should go. Right now, we're pretty close to done with the design. So we've already expended a little over $500,000. But I believe we're actually going out to bid right now. But I will talk to him and come back to you with recommendations, and it'll be based on what the fire chief recommends. The May cafeteria is complete. We had $2,400 left over, so that's in the scrape. Repair of bridges and urban trails. So there are a lot of our bridges with wooden decks. The wooden decks are old, they're splitting, they're loose. We need to repair them, so we're going to propose to move forward with that. If we don't do that, we'll have to close the bridges and probably close segments of trails. We thought that it was important to not only keep those, to repair them, but keep trails open, because we thought that once we transition out of our current stay-at-home orders, trails and those type of amenities that the city provides would be important to provide. Say if we can't open our rec centers as soon as some of those, so it provides a lot of opportunities for our citizens. So for the time being, we're proposing to keep that. Midtown campus, planning and site preparation. We haven't looked into that in too much detail. I do want to meet with Regina. We talked about it briefly, but just go over what the intent of all that money was for, and come back to you with a better presentation on that, the next iteration that we come back with. The public safety wireless, there is, that was to upgrade, I think, a lot of our communication, public safety people. So that was definitely essential. From what my understanding is this $2 million one, that a good portion of that would be utilized on the new fire station 2. So if for some reason that we decided to hold off on that fire station, it would not only free up $6 million, but could free up maybe $1 million. So a portion of this is being utilized for that fire station project with regards to the radio system of the fire station. The CRM system, we think we can utilize all that money. I think our constituent services has basically been doing this in-house and creating a new constituent management system. I'm going to schedule a meeting with Christine just to make sure that's the case, and make sure that they didn't need any resources to complete that project. Once I have that information, I'll present it to the next iteration. That's all of the general fund bonded projects, GRT bonded projects. What I can do is, you know, I don't know what's the easiest thing. If you guys wanted to reach out to me with any comments, what I want to eventually do is get to a formal draft that I would present for recommendation by you guys, and then we carry that on to the finance committee to show what the Public Works Committee recommended of the projects that we wanted to spend for the time being. Did you guys want to move on into the other color-coded projects, or talk about the GRT before I do that?
Let's stop there for a minute, John, since the GRT projects seem to be where we have the most flexibility, and see if we have any questions. Let's Counselor, let me see who has hands up. Let's go to Ms. Wheeler first, and then we'll get to questions from the counselors.
Thank you so much. And thank you, John, for putting this really succinct list together of all of our projects. It's really helpful to look at it in a snapshot. I just wanted to add a few details. One of them was, it's kind of a small project, that paver project. There are, as you guys know, the undulating sidewalks down around City Hall and the main library probably cost us $100,000 a year from trip claims that we pay all the time. So I think our best angle would be to find every single spot, like John said, that we could, that's hazardous, and we'll save ourselves money in the long run. You know, the fire station project, I think the estimate right now is at 6.7 million. So we knew that a lot of these savings were available, and our plan all along had been to bid the fire station and then allocate those savings over to the fire station. So, you know, that 921 is really more like $200 of spare cash if we, 200,000 of spare cash if we decide to move forward on the fire station. I can provide some clarification on Midtown 1.1 million. 400,000 of that was for planning. That hasn't been spent. 700,000 of it's for infrastructure improvements. And what that was for was as we work on closing the deal with the developer, if, you know, if there's a way that the city investing money in some infrastructure improvement could allow us to close a better deal with the developer, or make something happen faster, or say we might use some of that to create infrastructure for affordable housing at Midtown, because that's something that we can do with our funds to reduce the cost of housing at Midtown. And so that's the 700,000 that's in play was, you know, available for that, that purpose. The public safety wireless project is really actually large. A lot of money's actually been spent on that already, but John's right. They sort of figured out a way to do the best way to do the radio tower was on the fire station 2 would really, so it was like a big centerpiece of the project for the public safety wireless. And they did allocate a bunch of funds actually to us already. And so that's right, that those two things are really coupled. And in some ways we better check on that because they're like really counting on it. So we need to check on that. And then last but not least, I just wanted to point out that I think our understanding is that we're operating on sort of a 3-pronged strategy right now. And the 3rd prong of our strategy as a city is to bring the city out of a recession by whatever it means we can. And so having a fully designed and ready to roll project, you know, is a great opportunity to stimulate jobs. And so it's important to remember that this set of money right here could be one of our biggest pieces getting people back to work and getting the economy moving again. So it's sort of a trade-off, you know, what do you not spend and you know, but what do you spend in order to stimulate the Santa Fe economy? And that's all I had. Thank you so much, Chairman. And thank you, John. On that.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Councilor Vihel Coppler, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the Genoviva Chavez Center. I think, John, I heard you say that, you know, things have been moving along with that. And maybe, I don't know if I heard you say that maybe we could do without the rest of that money. But before that, I wanted to ask, did we get all the leaks fixed and all those buckets out of the courts? Are those done? Is that playable?
John,
Oops.
you're muted.
You got to start over.
All right.
There you go.
I don't have the status of that, and I apologize for that. I'll get an update on that. Those projects, if they're not already done, we're not proposing to eliminate those projects.
So this isn't the money used for that?
No, so I'm going to open up some fields that I hid just to kind of make things a little bit easier to go over. So for Genoviva Chavez, we've already spent $3 million, so we still have $750,000 of encumbrances. And then after that encumbrance and actual, we still have 1.17. So we have roughly $2 million, a little less, that we haven't spent yet. That's tied up between encumbrances and unencumbered money. So of that, we're only proposing to cut out 356. So there's still some work that's currently encumbered and some work that's currently planned for that we are not cutting out. That 356 is just those 2 items that I discussed. But I can get a status of where we're at, where the remaining of the funds is going to be spent, what's already been built and what's going to be built. I'll get you that at the next presentation.
Okay, and then same kind of theme here. And what about the roof and the problems we've had with humidity? You know, this is one of the most expensive facilities we have. and it's never really fixed. And we haven't had a facilities director for 3 years of that place. So I worry about it because I just worry about it. And so we're not gonna take any of that maintenance money away, are we? Because things will only get worse.
So that's a very good comment, and I fully agree. So no, the things that we're looking to not do are listed right here. Again, it's the full window painting, the interior structural painting, and the full tile repairs. Everything else that we need to do, we're going to continue with. Further down in this green area, the mezzanine roof, that's that project. So my understanding is a lot of our HVAC system that sits on the roof, it is, there's constantly pigeons up there putting their droppings on them, and it's compromising the life of those. So what this will do is help make our HVAC last longer, a fraction of the cost of what it costs us to replace them. So we're still proposing to move forward with that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, wait, one more thing. I just want to say, with regard to the fire station, former Councilor Harris reached out to me this week, and he has grave concerns about getting behind on the new fire station. And I see the airport's on here and it's in the gray though, hopefully a little more protection. But those are his two things aside from the Arroyo de Chamizo crossing. But the fire station and the airport are two big things that he really doesn't want us to let fall by the wayside. So there, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Lindell, you have anything?
Thank you, Chair. I'm having a very hard time hearing on this, so it's hard for me to ask pertinent questions. I just would have a comment that if we could find places to not proceed on some of these projects and hello?
Yeah, we still have you.
If we could find a place to save some money on these projects or hold back on expenditures for some amount of time, I think that it's really necessary that we do that. I think there's great urgency to us holding on to monies to try to get us through this fiscal year. And I don't know what the budgeting will look like for next year, but we've got a very, very, very sizable hole that we're still sitting in right now. And any of these projects that we can not spend monies on right now, I think it's important that we identify them and not spend money.
Thank you, Councilor Lindell. Councilor Garcia, did you have anything?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you, Councilor Garcia. Councilor Beta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councilor Lindell. I think if it comes down between people and projects, that's going to be a tough call to make, especially when you have projects that haven't been built yet. I also share the same concerns as Councilor Vigil Koppler with the Chavez Center. I think that's a major investment. It's a well-utilized facility, and I think we need to continue to try to fix that, regardless of what's going on with our budget, because that, especially if a teen center doesn't happen on the south side because we lose that money, then the Chavez Center is going to be even more critical for south side residents. So we need to, regardless of what we do, I think we need to continue to maintain that building and fix that building. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Beta. Mayor, I see you on. I don't have you on video, but want to know if you have any questions or want to make any comments.
Thank you for asking. I'm grateful. I think this is a terrific presentation. I think once again, staff has done an excellent job, and I appreciate all the thought that's gone into it. I have a little bit of a rogue thought. I don't mean it facetiously, but it may sound that way. Probably the most significant thing we could do to produce savings and efficiencies would be to build a new city hall and get rid of all of the extra assets that are really white elephants. We keep pouring money into our public buildings and they are barely standing up and they're inconvenient, and we spend an enormous amount of money, both capital and operating, to deal with the inefficiencies of the spread out assets we've got. And yet we keep shying away from, well, there it is up on the top, but it is hard to justify it. But if we ever did it, I think we'd find it saved an enormous amount of money. In the meantime, we are really strapped for funds. So every expenditure, as has been said by all the members of the committee, needs to be strategic and as thoughtful as we can make in terms of the trade-offs that are involved, Chair. So thank you for even asking. I appreciate it. And thanks for letting me listen in without prejudice. I just wanted to keep track of how things are going. Much
Sure,
appreciated.
thank you, Mayor. Councillor Romero Worth, you're also on. Not sure if you had any questions or comments regarding the first part of the presentation.
Thank you for calling on me, Mr. Chair. I'm not a member of the committee, just here to listen to the presentations, and thank you though for recognizing me to speak, but at this moment I don't have anything to say.
Thank you. All right, John, go ahead and continue with the rest of the colors and we'll go from there.
Okay, so again, this is a work in progress. There are other projects that were funded by maybe older GRT bonds that we're working on identifying, seeing where we're at with them. Either old GRT bond projects or old CIP reallocation, leftover GRT money that was reallocated. So we'll fold that into this orange area, and it'll change from 2018 GRT fund to just GRT bond funded projects, excuse me. So we will be adding those as well, and we're working on that as we speak. So moving on, Swan Park, these improvements, I believe, are for amenities such as horseshoe pits, maybe a community orchard or garden. And I apologize, I'm getting caught up on all these projects. I'm still a work in progress myself to catch up on what all these projects are. But by and large, this is to expand Swan Park. It's using general obligation bond money. So it may not have said specifically for Swan Park, but it was more than likely for parks, for park improvements. So, with that understanding, I think this may be tied up with that. We also thought that, this is a good outdoor amenity that when we transition out of this would be the first thing we want people to transition to and would be a good amenity for people to have. Tierra Contenta Trail, trails are along the same thing. I think keeping our trail system going and just moving forward with whatever planned projects we have is crucial. In that project, we're currently working on right-of-way acquisition, but it is a trail connection project that'll basically connect the Tierra Contenta development, the inner trails of the development itself, east towards South Meadows. It'll be a connection to South Meadows. So it'll get people to a lot of areas, including a lot of schools. So we're proposing to keep that moving forward for the time being. The rail trail project, it's the project we're getting ready to go to construction within the next month. That's the project by the New Mexico Department of Transportation, the rail trail from basically Alta Vista through Cordova. You go northeast all the way to behind the Horries there at Penn Road, kind of behind that chevron where the trail stubs out. So we're moving forward with that. That's using primarily general obligation bond money. We have a little bit of CIP reallocation in there right now. It's for contingency. Whatever's left over from that project, we'll be able to utilize in some of this orange savings. The mezzanine roof, I went over that. It's critical. It's to keep our HVAC system at the end of Chavez from failing. Our parking revenue control system, we're nearing completion of the infrastructure for that. And so now we're working to contract for more of the operational component, the billing and all that. Again, it's another one that we're kind of in it to win it. It's funded through a loan that'll be paid back by parking. And this might be one thing that we want to have up and running when we open for business. When we open for business and start charging, this will be a lot more efficient of a way for us to manage our garages. It won't be, we won't use as many people to do so. So I do think this is an investment that, although we're more than 2/3 of the way through it, it's important that we continue to do that investment. The Arroyo Chamizo crossing study, we're all familiar with that one. Right now, the consultant finalizing their phase A report and going to move into phase B. This uses roadway impact fees. Right now, I put them on a temporary hold. I didn't cancel the project, but one of the next big points of that project would be to have a public meeting. And so until we get closer to that point, we're going to hold off. And one of the reasons that was explained to me by finance is just having different kinds of cash on hand may be helpful just to float our finances for the time being. So I apologize if I misspeak about this, and finance will have a better understanding of this. But the way I understand is this money couldn't be permanently used for some of maybe our operational expenses, but it may be cash that they could float. So they're checking with finance council just to make sure that is a potential. They're looking into that. But other than that, it'll eventually start moving forward again once we open for business. Another reason it's held up is we need to get refined counts based off our preferred alternative. The preferred alternative we're proposing is a Richards to Richards connection. So the next phase, we're going to do a more detailed analysis of the intersections, see the Richards Rodeo intersections, the Richards Rios intersections. We need to get counts for those. We can't get accurate counts now because of the current closures. So we're going to have to wait for that. So even just for those counts themselves, we'll probably have to wait till at least next fall when school reopens, if it does. So that is on hold. The Camino Entrada roundabout, it's related to a project down here in the Gray. It's using impact fees as well, but it's goes hand in hand with our south side transit center that we're building there next to Santa Fe Motorsports. Right now, there's no real good pedestrian facilities to get people to that place. There is up to like the Rios Camino Entrada intersection, Sweet Wagon Road intersection. From there to the bus, the transit center, there's no sidewalks. So what this project will do, it not only adds sidewalks, but it's going to improve that intersection to be a roundabout. And the reason for that is that intersection right there at the corner of where the transit center is enormously wide, very dangerous for pedestrians. So this is going to kind of choke it up and make shorter crossing areas. So we think it's an important component to make that transit center successful. And again, it's using traffic impact fees as well. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about the green and the blue before I move on to the gray, or continue.
Yes, let's see if there are any questions with the blue and the green. Councilor Vihel-Coppler? No? Councilor Lindell, do you have any questions on the blue or the green?
No, Chair, thank you.
Councilor Garcia?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Beta?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Anything from the mayor or from Councilor Romero Worth?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything, Mayor, from you? You're muted, but I'll assume that means that there was nothing from you. All right, John, go ahead and go on to the gray.
Okay, so the gray, I don't know if you guys want me to go project by project, but for the most part, some of these require no match or very little match. I can maybe just go down real quick to explain that. I'll be as quick as I can. A Secular Trail project, and I'm not going to go into the complete scope, but just kind of go over the funding and why we're glossing over this. It's an NDOT grant, and we're looking to use GEO bond money to match that grant money. So not only does it leverage money, but it's using a little more specific of money to match it. So we're leaving that alone. Algofria Cottonwood, there was a little match required in the design, I believe. But the majority of that match has already been expended. So it not only leverages the remaining portion of the design money, but it leverages all the construction money, which requires no city match. So we're moving forward with that. The Algofria South Meadows, we've gotten some small grants relative to the size of the project. There's some state money, NMDOT money, and some legislative money that we've gotten for it. Whatever we're going to need to finish that project, we're going to propose to use impact fees. Of all the ongoing road projects we have, I do think this one is one of the most important ones. One, it's in a developing part of town. It's where they recently put a big school that's really taxing that intersection and causing very significant delays. And what I mean is significant. Everyone thinks there's no traffic problems in the city, and I always think that they're not that bad. Well, this one, they are that bad. Another thing is we have some planned development in the area, planned apartment complexes that have already gotten their approvals. And so to have this intersection fixed in anticipation of those will just help things out immensely. So I do think this is a critical project. The remaining, all these ones, the next two are DFA grants, the legislative appropriations. Harrison Road, lighting and sidewalk. I'm on Guadalupe. Guadalupe is the improvements we're doing on Guadalupe, there by downtown. That is a very small match for, I think $54,000 we're using to leverage over $5 million. So we're continuing with that one. Harrison Road's legislative, Kitchen Angels legislative, La Comunidad is legislative, Sandoval Montezuma is legislative. I believe Santa Fe Incubator is. The Southside Transit Center, there is a 20% match that we have planned and budgeted that leverages 80% of federal funds. Same with the bus shelter and the Downtown Transit Center. The solarization lighting project, this budget amount is the total needed. We don't have all that, but we've been chipping away at legislature. So what money we have funded right now is legislative funds. The Soccer Valley, so this is one that has a pretty significant match. We do have $250,000 of legislative funds, but we're kicking in 500 for and the county's kicking in 500. So there is $500,000 of city funds that could be potentially reappropriated. If we did so, I'm not sure if we lose that 250,000. I am gonna meet with Jennifer to just go over what that project was for. You might have more familiarity with it, Councilor Rivera, but and get a better sense of that. But that's, out of all these, that's the only one that has a significant amount of city funds matching.
Yeah, on that one, I think the county's match was contingent upon the city putting in 500,000. So we may lose that if we decide not to fund it.
Yep. And it's a balancing act that you guys mentioned, not only trying to stimulate the economy, but trying to provide amenities. And, there's a thought, park amenities might be easier to provide before we allow rec amenities, since it's a little more spread out and that type of thing. So these are definitely things to consider and not easy decisions. This is legislative money. Downtown restrooms is legislative money. I'll make a comment about that here shortly before I move on about legislative money in general. Southside Teen Center is legislative. Airport terminal is legislative, significant legislative. The runway is a DOT grant or an FAA grant. I forget one of the two. I don't know what runway 20 RSA, what kind of funds, GRT premium funds are. I'll get clarification on that. And then taxiway again has a significant amount, if not all, grant money. So those are all those. Before I open it to questions for those, the legislative funds, we are working very diligently to encumber as much money as we can. My understanding is once we encumber it, we at least have that money. And if we encumber money for a project, it can help retain the entire project. We haven't heard definitively of what the state's plans are. A lot of our 2019 legislative appropriations, I believe, were state general funded. I think our 2020 are a lot of severance tax bond. So there is a potential for that 2019, the state may need to use that general fund, but they may look to use severance tax bond money to replace the funding. That is a potential. We'll let you know as soon as we find out. But if that happens, then we wouldn't lose the funding. It's just they'll figure out a different way to fund it. So we're hoping for that. We have reached out to them and explained the importance of all these projects and how we want to keep the money. But again, we're moving forward on these and trying to get things going. So do you guys have any questions regarding the gray area?
Thank you, John, for that presentation. Ms. Wheeler, did you have something to add? I see your hand up.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the RSA project, you guys may remember, that's required by FAA, and that was $1 million appropriated by the governing body, but we only had to spend like $866,000, I think it was, John, something like that. And I don't know if you have that number on there, but that RSA has to happen. But I think there was some leftover from the appropriation.
Okay, yeah, we have it now at 729, so pretty close to 800. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Viejo-Coppler, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask John, has anyone reached out to Santa Fe County about their for the MRC soccer? Do we know if they're still interested in that or not?
I have not. So my plan was to meet with Jennifer and other appropriate personnel at Parks, just to get caught up to speed with them on what they're planning to do that, and then maybe setting up a meeting between us and the county to go over that as well. And then I'll look to have more information for that for you guys when I present at the next Public Works Committee.
I can add a little bit to that, Chairman, if it's all right, and Councilor Viejo-Coppler. We actually have a contract with the county for this, so they are contractually obligated, and there are terms and conditions as well as milestones that we reach and give us money.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lindell, did you have anything?
Good, thanks, Chair.
Councilor Garcia?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Beta, did you have anything?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to the mayor. Did you have anything to add or any questions?
No, sir. Thank you for asking, though. Appreciate it.
Councilor Romero Worth?
No, Mr. Chair, no questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So thank you, John, for addressing the airport as well. I wanted to give Shannon a brief moment to address any of their capital projects. And I don't believe anything from public utilities comes from the general fund, but maybe you can clarify that.
And if it's okay, Chair, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you're correct that there's no CIP that are funded by the general fund, but as an update, we're continuing ahead with our essential projects that are underway that are currently funded, continuing to evaluate how we look at our CIP funds going forward. Same considerations, there is outside funding sources that we're prioritizing now, looking at any outside funding, making sure that our applications are still up to date and we're trying to stay in the running. A lot of discussion currently around, I'm going to say, stimulus money. So no guarantees on that money, but making sure that the city utilities is in the running for any of those funds. And so all of that is is currently being evaluated and looking to get our contracts in place for next fiscal year on the things that we are going to have moving forward, is the work that staff is doing now. So I don't know if there were specific projects that the committee was interested in, but that's the update that I have.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Jones? Again, if you have any questions, just wave your hand at me or give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, I will assume that there are none. So thank you, Mr. Jones, for that. John, thank you for that presentation. I assume as we go forward in the next 2 weeks at our next meeting, we'll have some more definitive answers from the fire department, whether that project can wait. That would be a considerable savings, as well as some of the other projects you identified, and then questions regarding the county's match. I guess regardless of whether we have a MOU or an understanding, if they're still committed to that, I think would be important to hear from them. So a little bit of information for you to gather, but hopefully we'll get that taken care of at the next meeting. Is there anything else committee members would like to see from Public Works or from Shannon Jones at Public Utilities for the next meeting? Let's start off with Councilor Lindell. Anything specific you'd like to see going forward?
No, I think that this presentation that we just had was really important, and to get the information back to us that's been requested. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Beta, anything from you moving forward?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilor Garcia.
No additional information needed. Thank you. Thank you, John. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Councilor Vihel Coppler, anything moving forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to have, if it's timely anyway, I don't know, the finance director's perspective on any of these things that maybe, if they're, especially in the GRT, that she might recommend for removal, and what amount that would be, what savings that would be.
Very good. And with that, John, what are the repercussions if we do decide not to move forward on a project, really how that's going to affect the public ultimately in the end, I think is important as well.
Okay,
Go ahead, John.
Oh, no, I got both of you, so I'll work with them to have that information for you.
Okay, Mayor, anything that we're missing on this?
No, sir. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I thought the questions were really well thought out. I do think going forward, I will say one thing. I can't resist. I apologize. I think it's important to look at the finances. It's also important to look at issues of equity and not just geographic equity, but who's being served. And then we're going to find, I think, going forward in the rest of this fiscal year and starting next fiscal year, the difficult challenge of making trade-offs. And as John was saying from time to time, look how much money we're leveraging here. If we can keep our money in the game, we leverage X times it. So we're going to have to try to do some clever and very strategic trade-off analysis about where we get the most bang for our buck under tightened resource scenarios. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Romero Worth, anything you'd like to see or anything we're missing out on?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Very good. Unless we have any other questions for John, we look forward to the next presentation, and maybe Shannon, on your side, just a list of projects, and I know you have that list readily available, and where the funding's coming from, just so we're all on the same page. Thank you. Next, we're on to matters from staff. Anything, John?
I have nothing, Chair. I don't know about Regina.
All right, Ms. Wheeler, anything from staff?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jones, anything from your side?
There's nothing, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Matters from the committee, anything from Councilor Vihil Coppler?
So I wanted to know from Shannon, there's a man named Robert George who was on contract. Was that person were there some wastewater issues that person is troubleshooting, or what is that about?
Make sure. Mr. Chair, Councilor Vihil Coppler, Robert George is a consultant, has a consulting firm that's under contract with the New Mexico Environmental Department. I would say typically for small water systems and wastewater systems, rural communities, but we did have an opportunity to reach out to NMED to see if we could leverage their contract and their funding to at least have him come on site and do just a third-party evaluation. The wastewater treatment plant has been struggling for a couple of years through the nutrient removal and then some of the recent plant upsets, and we definitely wanted to get a third-party opinion. So he was able to do a site evaluation and is developing and looking to finalize a report with his recommendations. I think it was good. It was good to sit with him and get that perspective. Also, currently, the wastewater treatment plant is moving forward with their next rehabilitation project of the aeration system. And right now, I'm trying to coordinate, now that Mr. George has completed his report, we're trying to see if we can facilitate a discussion between our design engineers, Carollo, just again to kind of check bases and do due diligence. We're looking to move forward with the recommendation of the contractor who would do that work. So that's all upcoming. And so I am trying to facilitate an on-call conference call between the NMED consultant and our design engineers just to kind of continue to bounce all ideas and make sure that everything is in line. I will say currently in the report, the draft report that I was able to read from the consultant, there was some pretty aggressive modifications to the process that is currently being evaluated. It would be we're estimating about a 6-month transition on some of those recommendations. And so between wastewater staff, the consultant, and our design engineer, everybody is evaluating kind of that report and that feedback. So again, I think it was a good inner look, and we're evaluating some of the recommendations in that report. I hope that kind of answers your question of
No, it does.
contract and the consultant and what we're doing with that. And
Okay.
we would have a report. I would probably have it to the group prior to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, anything from Councilor Lindell? All right, Councilor Garcia?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Abeyta?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, Jesse, I know I'm supposed to introduce a resolution tonight. Having trouble pulling it up. Is there a way that you can introduce that on my behalf? Let me make you a panelist. Hold on just a second.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if he's on, but I think I might have that resolution to read off to you.
If you can read it on my behalf, like I said, I'm having some trouble pulling it up. That would be great.
You know what? Strike that. I don't have it. I apologize.
I don't see that Jesse is still on. Give me just a second here.
Yolanda may potentially have it. She's on as a panelist.
Yolanda, do you have that available?
Chair, what's the title of it? Do you know?
Wait a minute, hold on.
Chairman, this is Regina. I have it in front of me. I think the title is Counselor Lindell. All right, you did. Yeah.
I think I
have it, counselors, if you want. This is Yolanda.
Is it from the mayor, Yolanda?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it into the record, but a resolution from Mayor Ellen Weber, a resolution approving furloughs of up to 4 and 16 hours for certain city employees due to the fiscal impacts of the COVID-19 public health emergency. So that has been read into the record, and action will be taken on that, I assume, on Wednesday. There are no matters from the chair except for that. Our next meeting then is scheduled for Monday, May 11th, 2020. Unless there are any other questions or concerns, we are adjourned. Last chance. Everybody good? Very good. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you, Joe.